Have you ever stood on a bridge, feeling like everything you tried to build, love, dreams, even your English was slowly slipping away? This video isn't about grammar or vocabulary. It's about what happens when you want to give up but your heart whispers, "Try one more time." From a quiet morning in Denmark to a life-changing moment in a cafe, this story might change the way you listen to English and to yourself. The Bridge of Sighs, a cold morning in Denmark. It was one of those mornings when the air itself feels heavy, the kind of cold that sneaks through your coat and sits quietly inside your bones. I was standing on a small bridge in Copenhagen, looking at the water below. Locals call it the Bridge of Sighs. Not because lovers meet there, but because people often stop, sigh, and let something go. That morning I sighed too. Not because of love, but because of exhaustion. I had been in Denmark for 6 months, and every day felt like a test. I came here to study, to work, and to improve my English. But somehow, the more I tried, the more distant English felt. People spoke too fast. Their sounds blended like waves crashing into each other. I smiled, nodded, pretended to understand, but inside, I was drowning. I remember one moment clearly. A woman at the bakery asked, "Would you like rye or sourdough?" I froze. My brain understood every word separately, but together they meant nothing. I stood there like a statue until she repeated it slower, smiling kindly. That smile hurt more than the cold. Learning English in Denmark felt ironic. Everyone around me spoke English perfectly, yet that perfection made me feel smaller. I wasn't just learning a language, I was fighting my own shame. Every mistake sounded like a failure, every silence like proof I didn't belong on the bridge. I watched the fog move over the water. I thought of all the times I had promised myself, "This year I'll speak fluently." Yet every year I ended up in the same place, still translating in my head, still afraid of my voice. And then a strange thought came. Maybe the bridge wasn't just made of stone. Maybe it was made of all the sighs from people who had tried and failed before me. Maybe I wasn't alone at all. The air smelled like salt and coffee. A cyclist passed by and shouted something cheerful in Danish. I didn't understand, but somehow I smiled back. In that small smile I felt something shift. Maybe fluency isn't about speaking perfectly. Maybe it begins when you stop judging yourself for not being perfect yet. That morning I didn't make any promise. I didn't say, "I'll study harder." I just whispered to the river, "I'll keep showing up." Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't speaking perfectly. It's not giving up when your voice still trembles. Why we quit, the psychology of giving up. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to start something new, and how quietly we stop doing it later? Learning English is no different. At first we buy notebooks, download apps, watch YouTube videos, and tell ourselves, "This time I'll be consistent." But somewhere between the first excitement and the 10th mistake, motivation disappears like steam fading into cold air. The truth is, your brain isn't lazy. It's protective. It doesn't hate English. It hates discomfort. Every time you listen to someone speak too fast, every time you can't find the right word, your brain whispers, "Let's avoid this. Let's scroll Instagram instead." It wants you to feel safe, not stupid. Scientists call this the comfort loop. Your brain rewards what feels familiar, even if it's unhelpful. That's why so many people quit learning English after a few weeks. It's not because they can't. It's because their brain learned that not trying feels better than failing. When I first moved to Denmark, I thought my problem was grammar. But it wasn't. It was fear. Every time I opened my mouth, my brain screamed, "Don't embarrass yourself." So I spoke less, listened less, and the less I used English, the harder it became. It's a cruel circle. Fear creates silence, and silence makes you forget. One night, I wrote in my journal, "Maybe I'm not meant to be fluent." That line broke my heart, because deep down I knew it wasn't true. It wasn't English that defeated me, it was my mindset. Here's what I realized later. The brain loves patterns, but you can teach it new ones. When you reward effort instead of perfection, the brain begins to crave progress, not comfort. Instead of saying, "I failed," say, "I practiced." Instead of thinking, "They speak better," think, "I'm learning." Your English doesn't grow from easy days. It grows from the moments you almost give up, but don't. When you mishear, when you blush, when you try again, that's the moment your brain learns something new. So next time you feel tired, don't quit. Smile and say, "My brain is just protecting me, but I'm safe now." Then take one more step. Because the only real failure in learning English is stopping. When love feels like learning English, love and learning English have more in common than you might think. Both start with excitement. Both demand patience. And both can break your heart when you realize how much you don't yet understand. Think about it. When you fall in love, everything feels magical at first. You listen closely. You repeat what they say. You want to understand every little meaning behind every little word. Learning English feels the same in the beginning. You're curious, eager, full of hope. But then reality walks in. Just like in love, there comes a point when you realize communication isn't easy. You misunderstand. You get embarrassed. You try to express yourself, but it comes out wrong. You say something that sounds fine in your language, but strange in English. You see confusion in the other person's eyes, and you feel that tiny sting of shame. That sting is the same one you feel when someone you love doesn't seem to get you. And that's when most people stop trying. Not because they don't care, but because caring hurts. When I lived in Denmark, I used to join a local study group. There was this one girl from Spain, kind, funny, and fluent. I admired how easily she spoke English. Once during a group project, I said something wrong and everyone laughed, not meanly, just naturally. But my chest tightened. I stopped talking for the rest of the day. Later, she came up to me and said, "You know, your English is really improving. Don't stop because of one silly moment." That simple kindness hit me deeper than I expected. It made me realize something. Love and language both grow in the same soil. Vulnerability to love is to risk being misunderstood. To speak a foreign language is the same. But both are beautiful because they force you to be real, to drop your masks, to let people see the clumsy human part of you. When you think about it, fluency isn't about perfect grammar, it's about connection. It's about daring to keep talking even when your voice shakes. Just like in love, the goal isn't to impress. It's to be understood. So if your English still feels awkward, don't see it as failure. See it as love in progress. Because every word you struggle to say is just your heart learning a new way to speak. My Danish struggle, lost in translation. There's a strange kind of silence that comes when you live in a country where no one speaks your first language. It's not peaceful. It's lonely. I remember walking through the streets of Aarhus, surrounded by laughter and chatter, yet feeling invisible. Like a ghost who could see everyone but couldn't join their world. At first, I told myself it was fine. I had my phone, my dictionary, my confidence. But then real life started asking questions. The bus driver asked something in Danish. I froze. The cashier made a joke. I smiled, not knowing what I was agreeing to. People around me moved with ease, while I repeated sentences in my head, trying to sound natural. But nothing about me felt natural. Every time I spoke English, I could hear my accent standing in the way, like an uninvited guest who refused to leave. And that accent reminded me I didn't belong. One night, after a long day of group work at university, I went back to my small apartment. I looked in the mirror and whispered to myself in English, "Why can't I sound like them?" My voice cracked a little. I wasn't just frustrated with English, I was frustrated with myself. That night I realized something painful but true. I wasn't afraid of the language. I was afraid of being judged. Every conversation felt like a test I was failing. And the more I tried to sound perfect, the more robotic I became. It's funny, isn't it? We start learning English to express ourselves, but sometimes the process makes us hide instead. I had so much to say, but my fear turned my voice into a whisper. Then one rainy afternoon, a Danish classmate named Emil told me, "You don't have to sound like us. We love how you speak. It's honest." That word, honest, changed everything. For the first time, I saw my accent not as a mistake, but as my story. Each sound I made carried my country, my struggles, my courage. My voice wasn't broken, it was bilingual. And maybe that's the most human thing of all, to be understood even imperfectly. After that, I stopped trying to erase my accent. I started listening more, really listening to the rhythm of English, to how people paused, laughed, emphasized certain words. It was like learning music instead of grammar. And slowly something magical happened. The silence that once felt heavy began to sing. The turning point, a cafe conversation. It happened on one of those gray Danish afternoons when the sky couldn't decide whether to rain or just stay sad. I was sitting in a small cafe near the train station, half listening to the chatter around me, half drowning in my own thoughts. My laptop screen glowed with an English article I couldn't focus on. Every word looked familiar, yet my brain refused to cooperate. I sighed again. Maybe this was it. Maybe I was just not the kind of person who could ever be truly fluent. That thought was both comforting and heartbreaking. Then, a voice interrupted my pity party. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I looked up. A woman in her 30s, Danish, with kind eyes and a cup of cappuccino in her hand. "No," I said quietly. "You can sit." She smiled and started reading a book in English. I couldn't help but glance at the title, The Art of Being Wrong. I laughed softly. She noticed. "Good book," she said. "It teaches you how to fail better." Her words hit me like a gentle punch. Fail better. We started talking. Slowly, hesitantly. At first, I worried about every grammar mistake, every wrong tense. But she didn't seem to care. She listened with real curiosity, not judgment. At one point I confessed, "I've been in Denmark for months, and I still feel stupid every time I speak English." She laughed kindly. "You're not stupid. You're brave. Most people never speak at all because they're too afraid to sound human." That sentence stayed with me long after she left. Too afraid to sound human. It sounded poetic but also painfully true. I realized that my fear of mistakes was killing my ability to connect. I had turned English into a battlefield instead of a bridge. That day I made a quiet decision. From now on, I would stop studying English like a subject and start using it like a tool for connection. I began to talk more with baristas, classmates, even strangers at bus stops. Sometimes they didn't understand me and we laughed. But that laughter became my new teacher. Every conversation, every awkward pause, every shared smile, it all counted. And slowly my fear began to fade, replaced by something softer, something warmer. Confidence born from imperfection. That cafe wasn't fancy, and the coffee wasn't even that good. But it gave me something I'll never forget. A new beginning hidden inside an ordinary afternoon. Training your ears like a native. Here's the truth. Native speakers don't speak fast to confuse you. They speak fast because their brains connect meaning, not words. If you want to truly understand English, you must train your ears, not your grammar books. When I realized that, everything changed. I stopped forcing myself to memorize word lists. Instead, I started listening, really listening. Every morning, I'd put on my headphones and play a short English podcast while walking to school. Not to understand every word, but to feel the rhythm. At first, it sounded like noise. Words melted into each other. Gonna, wanna, lemme. It was chaos. But after a few weeks, something magical happened. My brain began to predict sounds. Like music, it started recognizing patterns before I consciously understood them. That's how babies learn language, through repetition, not translation. If you listen the right way, your ears slowly become smarter than your dictionary. You stop panicking when you don't understand a word. Instead, you understand the feeling of what's being said. And that's real fluency. I remember one specific evening. I was sitting by the window watching the snow fall outside, listening to a TED Talk about resilience. I understood maybe 70% of the words, but 100% of the message. And I thought, so this is what it feels like to belong in a language. To train your ears like a native, you don't need expensive courses. You need consistency. Pick something short, 5 minutes a day. Repeat it. Listen to the same clip again and again until it feels like a song stuck in your head. Shadow the speaker, repeat after them, copy their tone, even their breath. It's awkward at first, but it rewires your brain faster than any grammar drill. Science proves it. When you mimic sound, your brain builds stronger neural pathways. You're not just learning English, you're becoming it. I practice with podcasts, movie lines, and even cafe conversations I secretly recorded. Don't tell anyone. Sometimes I repeated one phrase 20 times until it rolled off my tongue naturally. Now, when someone speaks fast, I don't freeze anymore. My ears do the work quietly, like loyal soldiers trained by rhythm and emotion. So, if you ever feel lost listening to English, don't give up. Just keep your ears open, your heart patient, and remember, fluency doesn't happen when you understand everything. It begins when you stop fearing what you don't understand yet, letting go, and learning again. There comes a moment when you realize the hardest part of learning English isn't remembering words. It's forgiving yourself for forgetting them. For years, I carried this invisible pressure. To speak perfectly, to sound smart, to never make a mistake. But perfection is a prison. And the key to fluency is learning to let go. One afternoon, I was practicing English with a Danish friend named Sophia. We were talking about travel and I said, "I'm interested in mountains." She laughed. Not cruelly, just amused, and corrected me. "You mean interested, not interesting." For a second, my old reflex kicked in. Embarrassment, shame, that familiar wave of, "I'll never be good enough." But instead of going quiet, I laughed too. Felt strangely freeing. The world didn't end. Nobody judged me. In fact, the moment became fun. That day I realized how much energy I'd wasted hiding behind my mistakes. I had treated every error like a bruise on my identity, instead of a sign of growth. But English, like life, only rewards the brave, not the perfect. When you let go of your fear, your brain starts learning again. Science calls it neuroplasticity, the ability to grow new connections. But emotionally, it feels like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. You stop memorizing and start living the language. So I changed my approach. I stopped studying to impress others. I started speaking for joy. I listened to songs and sang along, even off-key. I told stories to myself in English while cooking dinner. I even kept a mistake diary, where I wrote every funny error I made that day. It turned out to be the happiest notebook I ever owned. Little by little, English became a friend again, not a monster. I no longer wanted to conquer it. I wanted to dance with it. And here's the secret. Once you stop trying to control English, it starts flowing naturally through you. Like a river that never stops, even when it hits rocks. So if you're stuck, tired, or ashamed of your mistakes, take a deep breath. Let go. Laugh at yourself. Try again. Because every time you forgive your imperfection, your English forgives you too, and moves one step closer to fluency. In the end, you don't master English by force. You master it by surrender. The real bridge between you and yourself. Months later, I found myself back on that same bridge in Copenhagen, the Bridge of Sighs. The air was cold again, but this time it didn't feel heavy. I leaned on the rail, looking at the water, and remembered the person I used to be. Scared, quiet, always second-guessing every word, every sound. The one who thought fluency meant perfection. But now, something had changed. My English was still imperfect. My accent was still there. Yet, for the first time, I didn't want to erase it. Because behind that accent lived me. My country, my memories, my stubborn hope. As I watched the ripples on the water, I realized that every sigh I had released on this bridge wasn't a sign of failure. It was part of my transformation. Each frustration, each mispronounced word, each moment of silence, they all built a bridge. Not between languages, but between who I was and who I was becoming. You see, learning English or any language isn't really about mastering grammar or sounding like a native speaker. It's about learning to listen to yourself again. It's about building a bridge inside your own mind, from fear to courage, from silence to voice. Sometimes that bridge feels fragile, like it might collapse under the weight of your doubt. But if you keep walking, one shaky step after another, it becomes stronger. And one day you'll look back and realize you've crossed it without even noticing. As I stood there, the wind picked up, carrying the faint sound of someone laughing in Danish nearby. I smiled. I didn't understand every word, but it didn't matter anymore. I had learned something far greater than a language. I had learned to let go, to love myself enough to keep trying, to listen deeply, even when I didn't understand, to speak honestly, even when my voice trembled. The Bridge of Sighs, once a symbol of defeat, had become my reminder. Every sigh, every pause, every broken sentence was proof that I was alive, still learning, still daring, still human. And maybe that's the real lesson. English isn't just something you study. It's something you live. So if you're standing on your own bridge right now, wondering whether to keep going, take this as your sign. Don't turn back. Keep walking. The other side is already waiting for you.